Hello and welcome to the Answer Podcast. My name is Paweł, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, my dear friend, the game director of the next Witcher saga, Sebastian Kalemba.
Thanks a lot, Burza. Yeah, man, it is a treat today because we going to have Paweł Mielniczuk and Lucjan Więcek, our legendary art directors from Red. One works here for like almost 20 years, another one almost 18 years. So there are some good stories to talk about.
Yeah, 38 years of experience within this company, working on all the titles from the early Witchers all the way to Cyberpunk 2077 and Phantom Liberty. So this one's going to be a treat. So let's jump right into it.
Yeah, let's start. All right, guys.
All right, hey. now it's even more awkward.
We are very hyped.
Those hands, behind table.
Lucyan.
Okay, everything's all right.
Yeah,
good.
that's Lucyan. So, guys, good to have you here.
It's not me.
Guys, can you introduce yourself? Tell a little bit how long you are here at Red and what do you do?
Hello. Yeah, my name is Lucjan Więcek. I'm here almost 20 years. Next year gonna be 20. And I'm a director in The Witcher Polaris. Mm-hmm. Hello.
Awesome.
20 years.
20 years.
Let that sink in.
Oh, man.
Yeah. 20. I'm gray here and on the it's like...
You weren't gray 20 years ago.
We're going to show some pictures in comments of Lucyan 20 years ago.
Exactly.
You don't want to see my pictures from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm Paweł Mielniczuk. I'm far less experienced because this year I'll be 18 years in the company. I'm an art director in Cyberpunk. Now my last project was Phantom Liberty. And like Lucyan, we've been working here on everything, starting from Witcher 1 to Witcher 2, 3, or expansions, Gwent and everything.
Yeah.
Nice.
We are together forever.
Forever. Since
It's really nice because we have two worlds colliding here. We have, because you also have Witcher experience, but now you're kind of separated in some sense because you're focusing on the next Witcher saga and you're focusing on the next
new
adventures
yeah.
and other stuff. So that's going to be interesting. So two points of view. So I think we want to start like very generally because this whole episode is going to be about art. And I want to kind of know, like, what in your opinion comes first, the story or the art? What, the chicken or the egg?
It depends from the project sometimes, right? Like sometimes we don't have a story and we start working on the art, and sometimes on the opposite side, and in the middle, somewhere in the middle, we adjust both those pieces together and start working like a one product. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It really depends from the production line.
Does story actually help you a lot?
Oh my gosh, of course. Like the story is the main engine for everything. Like this, the main motivator, right, for whole art, and everything depends from story.
But it also depends what you mean by story, right? Mm-hmm. Because, for example, the outline of the game, the main plot, it's important, sure, but what we need at the very beginning to make the proper world building is like more like a story of the world we are portraying. Like the world, to make the proper world building, we need to know from where it comes from, what's the history of it, was the all this dynamics, politics, societies, etc. And it's not always part of the actual thing that you consider being a story at the beginning of the project, right?
Yeah, but fun fact is that I absolutely agree with you guys that this is an engine, as Lucyan said. But there are some moments that, let's say, we're lacking of some story piece, and actually art goes and explores, and actually it boosts and inspire our story writers a little bit. And we had some situations like that. Can you recall something from previous projects? Of, let's say, you like doing and exploring, doing some R&D behind the art, like, let's say, I don't know, a district behind, let's say, Night City, that the story didn't think about at first, but you thought, and that inspired somehow the whole city building, let's say, and the city background and backstory.
Actually, many times it's happened, some kind like that. Yeah, sometimes we have a lot of big scope, like a lot of amazing ideas. We would like to implement in the game, and after that we have to go to the reality and cut out many of these amazing ideas, and sometimes only stay those ideas in the art area. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's that good, and we will just pop up come back to these ideas and start to implement it. And when guys from the story, from Quest, they see how big it is, how sometimes how strong, and they want to do something with it. They want to have in the part of the story, and we have a lot of inspirations from our amazing artists. We have amazing artists in our departments, and they inspire story guys and they inspire the gameplay guys, and sometimes this is one of our, I think, strongest arms. Side quests. Sometimes side quests looks better, or works better than main storyline. It's happened like that. And because of amazing ideas behind the side quest, not only from the story perspective but also from the art. It's like a self engine.
Exactly. All departments are fueling themselves actually to work on stuff. Like what we usually do, for example, we're making, we know where the story will be set. It was like, for example, in the Phantom Liberty last time, we make a map in art of the district and we ideate what kind of points of interest can happen then, what kind of stories we can see there, right? And this, we make a giant map of ideas, like here, a broken tank and a helicopter, collapsed building, revealing something, etc. There are plenty of those ideas. And this is being sent to the quest designers and story writers, and they took inspiration from that. Some of those things they just pick up, say, okay, let's make a side quest around it, etc. Right? So it's like both cooperating both ways between the departments. I think that's the best setup.
Yeah, I love it. And
that's also why we framed the question we wanted to see, because we know that sometimes it is that art inspires us in such a big sense that we're like, oh my God, this is so good. Like, we need to use it. We'll come up with something to use it so it fits the whole puzzle piece.
The moment.
You experience the game through the monitor. So what you see, and it's often, story drives the player, but sometimes also like this, for example, points of interest. You see something on the horizon, you want to go there, you want to explore it, right? And that's the beginning of the story. Like the visual feedback is the first thing you see.
Yeah, but that's also like about the world building. So referring to the beginning, to the first question that Burza just asked, what's first, what was first, or what is first, chicken or the egg? And I think the answer is provided by you guys, that it's not that anything is first. It's kind of things are, of course, the story we most often starts with, but later in the process, those things are like elevate each other in the process, and this is pure creative part of our job, right?
Yeah. Story is the very, very strong motivator, right? And at the same time we have gameplay area, right? And this is the point actually, with very strong impact on this what we are doing in the art, in the worlds, with character, with character itself, with moments, as Paweł mentioned, like when you would like to see, like when you just stand somewhere on the top of the mountain or building, whatever, you open the door and you see something there. Like, of course, it's like you have to have some motivations, from story, from gameplay, from narration, from sounds, music, whole surrounding, visual effects. So together, everything together, the one place is start to be with big value and the one message. And this is the point. It's not only art, not only story. There's a lot of another departments behind all those suit, right? Because in the end we will create some like a suit fitting to this IP or that IP, right?
I think the best games and the best products excel in all of those departments. You have great story, great visuals, great music, great gameplay, right? If only one of those things is best and the rest is average, you have this balance, right?
That's true.
And then you notice like some things are a little bit better and there's a disparity between them. And you're like, oh, well, I see visually it's like super, but the story,
There's also something like environment storytelling, for example.
Yeah.
So like stories conveyed without words, only through, for example, what you meet and what you see in the game, right? So you see some corner with some corpse, stuff, and you as a player, you don't have any stories around it, but you start thinking about what happened here, what was the reason? Maybe I should go there, look for something, right? And that's also something we really love to do, like telling the stories through art only. That's cool.
Yeah, so in the end, like you kind of communicate with the player, right? What you said, like what you see, you have a player, you have a game, the player interacts with it, but generally with the art, you purely communicate with the player. And I'm wondering, guys, like how do you manage with so many requests that comes from all the, because art kind of serves everyone. You know what I mean? It serves to the player's guidance, serves to the player's setting, serves to the story, quest, etc., etc. It's absolutely everywhere. And so you are always like in the middle of this kind of tornado, and juggling so many requests and finding the sweet spot, finding the compromise between the request from gameplay and the animation and the, let's say, story, it's difficult. And I'm wondering how you manage kind of being, finding these compromises.
This is actually a very big point. For example, like for Cyberpunk main game, we did a lot of mood boards with story beats, with color information about color. With important events, very, very important, like related with this, what kind of color we would like to have there, and the characters, also like bad, good, stuff like that, like very, very obvious. But we did like, I don't know, not even 100 mood boards, hundreds, really, like literally, still we have it somewhere on the Google Drive in our library, and we try to understand what kind of message we would like to give for players, when in terms of those mood boards, and after that we, of course, with many bumps in the middle, we almost we try to delivering this all pieces what you mentioned, and it's very, very complicated, and where's the common denominator between all of them? It's emotions, and it's always like if you would like to sell something, you have to adjust to the emotions, If you would like to sell emotions, you have to know what kind of emotion is behind the quest or character, everything like that, and you start to analyze, and you see, okay, in the environment, I have to do this. In the character, with character, I have to do that. And with visual effects, I have to do this. And lighting, I have to do something else. But together, it should sell you one type of emotion, and this emotion should told you everything. You as a player, not me. So you have to sell all those. Story narration to the player.
Big idea pretty much for the whole thing.
And this is the way, like it's not maybe the best solution, but definitely it's something what help us a lot.
This is setting the vision for the project through mood boards, through keywords, experiments, like beautiful corners, art Bible, first of all, right? But this is the first step. Then you have this 130, 150 people art team, 14 teams we have usually in the company cooperating for those. So it all comes down to alignment with your team leads, with your teams. Like everybody in our department, which is like massive usually in our projects, they all need to actually understand the vision, know it. They need to have it, written, explained, processed, and strong leaders are also the kind of very crucial part of processing all those requests you're asking for.
That kind of leads into my next question. How hard is it actually to manage like so many different teams responsible for so many different things? Because you have environment, you have vehicle, you have characters, you have weapons, multiple things, and how to keep all those things in line so the vision is there, because you're also dealing with amazing artists who have incredible talent, but they bring their own style. And does their style always fit to what you're trying to sell as a whole package? That's the question.
That's a good question.
It's all about alignment, and it's never what you plan at the very beginning. It's never the same thing at the very end, right? It's always changes. There's always like the information dilute, fades a little bit through interpretation of different artists, leaders, teams, sometimes project requirements, etc. But it's super important to set the foundation at the beginning and try to set the course and stick to that. So the drifting is not that big, right? But it's all about alignment, trust, and communication, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Communication. Alignment. This is the two things, but it's really not difficult. I remember like we have a lot of examples like, oh, we would like to start with something, as Paweł mentioned, and we will finish with something completely different, or maybe not that completely different, but somewhere
But way
around.
different.
Yeah, okay, completely different. Yeah, and you're right. It's happened sometimes because in the middle, we find, or someone from our team, like usually someone from our team had better idea. Yeah, and it's so cool, to take it, and adjust to the whole this story and art, etc. And to make it as a one consistent piece. Yeah, and we always have this kind of situations in our team because, as I mentioned, we have extremely
Top level artists, yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Team is important.
So you critique your own work, right? So you
do.
like in between teams,
Yeah.
like you have like these gatherings where you're like, okay, maybe I would do it this way. Or if you're, for example, working, let's say, let's put something general on the table. You're working, I don't know, on a robot, let's say, and you get a pitch with 4 concepts. You choose one, and then you guys work on it with the team. They propose something. How much iteration goes in within the process? Is it just like, no, let's go back to the previous one, or let's explore these 2?
Oh my God.
Lucyan is doing this
Show me what you
art
can
director
do.
thing, which is like
Yeah.
more to the left, okay?
No, because it's
To the
super
right.
interesting because some people might think that it is that way, but I feel like there's more to
Oh
it.
yeah, it's absolutely not this. Yeah.
I mean, not with the scale of the teams. I think you can do that with like 10 people team, 20 maybe maximum, right? But with over 100 people, it's. I always think about our director as orchestra conductor, right? So you're figuring out what kind of song you'll be playing. You're trying to arrange it, but then you hire those talented artists and they are playing the song, and you are just trying to make sure that they're doing the same thing at the same time.
Staying
right?
on point.
But the funny thing, exactly. But the funny thing is, referring to what you said and what you said before, is like, finally, this art Bible, the art direction, it's some kind of a suit, right? And you create a suit for Geralt, Witcher. It's fantasy, dark, grounded, and then that's fun. Actually, that's cool. Fun factor. You have a Geralt on your chest, and then you have a V on your chest, and then you have a V suit, which is like,
And
oh yeah, nice. Which is future noir.
But also very grounded. But because everything in Cyberpunk is very practical. That was something that struck me, because it's dystopian future. Like future, I expect to have, I don't know, everything like flying off of my hands, like having these, everything's like holographic. You can go crazy. People are dressed like weirdly, but it's grounded. It's
super
practical.
Grounded. Yeah.
And also what I really liked is like you have, the parts of the city that you can see that there's a lot of money. There's corpos, and then you have the street kids, and they look totally different.
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
So cool.
Absolutely. And talking about the suits, and talking about like an art director is conductor, but you said also that it requires the constant aligning, and the first idea is never the last. It means that you are actually changing conducting, and you are actually making
changing
this
tempo.
You are changing tempo. You are actually making this song in real time,
on the go.
And you have to, and those people there are sometimes, they have difficulties to catch up and to understand. So, it is difficult. And Lucyan said this all about communication and aligning. Is absolutely, I agree. But how do you manage also? Sometimes it requires redirecting or changing the direction, right? And how do you? What are your tools to convey and actually to translate the vision, especially that is changing, into the team, and that keeps people being motivated?
First of all, you have to take your ego to the pocket, totally, like completely. Like this is one of the things what everyone should learn. Every time when you're just a manage team, it's not always easy. Yeah, and you have to just understand what they thinking about. This what they would like to do with. Exactly this idea, yeah, and because sometimes behind this idea it's much more than any another, yeah, and many people can just understand just like that, yeah, and you have to start understood what they would like to say, yeah, and it's something's that easy, yeah, and sometimes you have to hear you producer voice. Like he can say, man, or guys, yeah, next week, next month, next milestone, all you have to delivering this thing, yeah, and you can't literally you can't iterate more. You have to have now your choice, yeah, and someone need to take this choice, yeah, and it depends from the situation, time, and the people and the idea how strong it is. But we have also a lot of ideas, like actually ideas. Moments in the whole production when we were, after deadlines, any deadlines, and we changed everything, and we had the ideas like at the moment like that. Yeah?
Never happened.
Just to be fair, yeah, and yeah, this is part of our job to keep together everything and have some, like in the end, some satisfaction, right? Not only our satisfaction, but
Do you have some examples maybe of things that first were one thing and then changed totally?
I mean, I don't think we often change base assumptions, like completely redo something. Like sometimes, like parts, for example, I know we are designing some location, it did not enter the game because of the quest changes, etc. Right?
Yeah.
But it's not like we are changing the complete vision of how art should be done for the project, at least not in the projects we did so far. But adjusting smaller things, like car design, weapon design, specific main characters, for example. Like I always try to push the main characters to design them as far in the production as it could be, because if you design them at the beginning, then through this years of production, you'll get used to them. So they will change not because they are bad or you have a better idea. It's just because you
have
see
time
them.
for it.
No, you are looking at them for 3 years and you just want to change it because it's boring now, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
You want the idea to be fresh and exciting. That's why you do it, right?
Yeah,
and it will be fresh and exciting for people outside the studio, but for us inside,
but for you, I've already seen this for 3 years. I'm like, come on, let's change it. Let's do something different.
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah. So going back to the grounded part and practical, why go this direction? Like we could have taken everything Witcher related to high fantasy starters, the standard. Like we could take Cyberpunk and make it less practical, but like over the top, like neons on everybody and stuff like that. These are just, of course, examples. But why go the direction? Do you want these things to be believable more or more grounded and kind of something that fits within our imagination today? Or there's another idea. Maybe you're thinking about cosplayers who are going to be creating these things and bringing them to life. So
absolutely. So me personally, I like believable things. So there's part of my personal preference. I like to know how things work. I like engineering. I'm a programmer.
That's why you're doing that many crazy things for Cyberpunk, of course.
I like to build things manually, also print things. I like when things work properly. I hate like rubber armors, for example. You have a game and there's like a knight in armor and everything's bent and you see it cannot work. So I like this believability. And sometimes I think in Cyberpunk we even push it too far. Sometimes letting this a pinch of fantasy wouldn't hurt anyone.
It should be like that.
But there are other consequences of this believability that it's easier for people to understand. And for example, if you have this team that needs to make a decision because I'm not available, or there are plenty of topics and decisions need to be made, and individual artists also need to make their own decisions. I think it's easier for them to make a decision if things are believable and logical, and they actually, by logic, they can figure out how things should work, right? Rather than having this fantasy designs all over the place, so they will have to guess what I wanted, for example, right? And the other thing are those cosplayers. I always love this aspect that we are making garments which are possible to manufacture and being recreated by cosplayers. That's what, in character design, that's always the most, this verification point in concept art. Some characters in Cyberpunk, obviously, like Adam Smash, etc., are impossible. But whenever we could, we're making this verification point. Can this be recreated in the real world? If not, let's try to alter it a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool.
And from The Witcher, first of all, it's not high fantasy.
I know. I said we're not going high fantasy.
Exactly.
It's dark fantasy.
We have to remember it's a dark fantasy, but low level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like. It's really, as I mentioned, actually, it's cool to go to the fantasy way, and it's very easy to really running too far, right? With this idea, with this thought, yeah, and it's very easy to create something not grounded and something less believable and more fantasy, it means it's a different type of the game. Yeah, and that's why we always want to I'm calling this like on one sentence, something like that. We are try working on the edge between real world and world of the fantasy. Yeah, it's like somewhere in between. Yeah, to take something from the fantasy but be grounded, stay grounded, with full bounce, meat, bones.
Yeah, we call it like it's kind of amazing and believable at the same time. Kind of like it's like on the border of those two worlds.
I think when you want the world to be believable and people to believe it, care about it, and treat it as reality, you cannot design armored bikini, for example, right?
I mean, you can, but not in this world.
Won't work.
Yeah.
But let's move to the past a bit. You guys shipped Witcher 3 expansions, and then Cyberpunk, and you have our team who just been doing for years medieval stuff, kind of, dark fantasy, and all this kind of thing. And you kind of have to mentally reset and reestablish almost everything, kind of, and understand the vision, and kind of also you have to teach new things. People need to learn stuff, and like resetting, kind of readjusting the mindset, jumping from Witcher to Cyberpunk probably was tough, right?
It was tough, a long process.
Never do it.
Today I'm designing a sword. Tomorrow it's a machine gun.
Yeah, almost.
Am I qualified?
Close.
It was hard for. It was fun for some. It was super hard for others, right? People who are really specialized, and we have a lot of people specialized in stuff, right? And tossing them between the projects and different stylistics, going outside their comfort zone is not always beneficial. So it was hard.
Yeah, imagine like when you're listening all the time, I don't know, jazz, and then after that, in the next day, you have to listen techno, right?
Unless you have to compose it.
You can compose it even,
and play
like
change
oh
instruments.
My God.
I remember it was like I don't remember that. It was 10 years ago, but it was, or even more. This process of the first adaptation for us was like a year to first like figure out what exactly we want to do. We had to hire a lot of new people because like nobody could design firearms or vehicles. Like we are missing specializations in many subjects, but people who were transferred from Witcher to Cyberpunk, they really require a time to adapt to it, learn new skills, new tech. For example, in Cyberpunk, we are designing a lot of things in 3D already. In Witcher, everything was hand-painted, right? It was all 2D concepts. And in Cyberpunk, mostly it was 3D concepts. So they had to,
that's a big shift.
Big shift, right?
Yeah.
So
today carrots, tomorrow, high cars, right?
Yeah.
Like, high-end cars, yeah. And today, wooden huts, tomorrow night city, right?
Yeah.
Like
Megapolis versus the small village.
So it's better to have two teams actually, and maybe some people who can transfer between, because there's a common ground, right? But there are those extremities where you just simply cannot transfer people between projects.
We had fun actually.
Yeah,
It
just took some time.
Yes, it took some time for sure, but it was really, really cool experience, to change the mindset, change the directions.
Absolutely.
But actually, like what you mentioned before, I feel like laying the groundwork is something that is very important. Like the mood boards, the art Bible, these are things that are supposed to be like this beacon of light that guides you in the proper direction. Yeah.
But having said that, you reset two absolutely, completely different IPs, but you both said that you like believable stuff. The Witcher is a dark fantasy, very grounded. So there is a common denominator, right? Like both worlds, they are, not our worlds, but are believable. And I'm actually thinking about your approach regarding, how you start creating environments, characters. Where's the starting point? References, inspirations, to make it believable. What makes the art believable?
Oh my God, it's like a very wide question. As we mentioned before, like I think it's one of the most important is areas. Yes, it's find the references, find the stories, find the places from real world, from the past, from the history, like our history, and start to analyze and adjust to this what we want to do it for the project. Yeah, and make a really, really good foundations, yeah? Like create those foundations. We have to do it at the beginning, and after that we can go further with our fantasy. Yeah, like without this, you have to learn, you have to take this lesson, yeah? You have to learn how to interpret it after that, and you have to interpret this lesson, yeah? This all references, this all analysis, yeah? And like everything like that, it should be in the end, packaging with like you have to create a new frame, frame, and you have to take it all and create new frame. And what kind of frame you would like to have, it depends from you. Yeah, you have to do it from the beginning, right? And
but you also have constraints, yeah? You have constraints from the lore, you have constraints from you're kind of readjusting your frame, right? Also, we are all constrained, yeah? Like without constraints, like it's difficult to find out what is a good design and what's not, right?
Yeah.
So, but also I feel like it depends on the IP, because if we looked at like Witcher, of course, there's a lot of books, everything is pretty much laid out. But Cyberpunk, it was 2020, and now we took it to 2077. So it's like boost it up, make things even crazier.
I remember first moment when we start just from the brutalism shapes, for Night City. It was like, no, it shouldn't be this shape. Like it was like, okay, it's too obvious. Like so, just like a Blade Runner or whatever. Like everyone know it, but when you start with something, what you really think like it's a good direction, it could be because you can find in the real examples, like it's from real world, like okay, this is like real world, it's our world, like it works, and you can find examples from French, Dutch, everywhere around, and create on top of that styles, as we did for Night City. You start to create something fresh, even if it's the foundations comes from from something what you really literally know. Yes, like this is not, we are not invent wheel from the beginning.
Exactly,
for sure. The Night City is not like I don't know, like something which you never seen in any movie, but at the same time you can find a lot of colorful faces of Night City from many movies. This is also.
But that's valid point, because we are actually talking about this foundation for the art, and we were all. I can personally say myself, I was biased as hell at the beginning. I remember this, that I love Blade Runner, so I love Sid Mead. I have all the art books you can imagine, right? And I was like really fed by it. You know what I mean? So my approach from the get-go was dark noir, brutalism. The acid rain, all this kind of stuff.
Neons.
Exactly, neons. And we literally were doing this, cherry picking. And I remember the moment when I think Adam said that, hey, Night City shouldn't be all the time dark, for example. And I was like, what do you mean not dark? It is full of color. It is cyberpunk. And remember, like, no, acid rains, just sometimes, and that completely changed my mind that time. And it was a foundation constraint that actually had a huge impact on what we started doing. And it was very kind of courageous decision, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a big problem at the beginning of Cyberpunk production, that everybody had implanted some imprinted Cyberpunk images in their heads.
This is what Cyberpunk
There are fans of Ghost in the Shell, there are fans of Akira, there are fans of Blade Runner, they're all different and all existing already, right? And we had to base the game on Cyberpunk 2020, which is completely different. It's this punk, right? It's a different thing. So we have to reinvent our own way of describing the Cyberpunk. And That was the challenge, and shifting from night to day was a big shift in the team.
Yes.
I remember.
Yes, like it was. I perceive it like it was as big as let's say
like
moving from
TPP to
FPP, and it was like why?
Yeah.
Like why? Because Night City is an antagonist, and we want to make you feel that you are overwhelmed by it, and it can eat you, swallow you, and spit
you
you
out.
exactly. And this is the feeling we want to create. And we're like, but we had zero experience in FPP. Zero regarding the tech, the approach, the animation, whatsoever. Like, and but
that was fun.
yeah,
It's more
But
immersive in
at the
this case.
beginning, it's a lot of references, finding the patterns, common denominators, drawing a lot, right? We had thousands of concepts and references got at the beginning, and we literally didn't know where to go. So we printed all of that on paper. We go to the mock-up room, set up all this paperwork on the floor, and we were just picking, like trying to find patterns, like what kind of.
Which one
there's plenty of great ideas, but all from different worlds, right?
We still have some pictures from this.
Yeah, I have pictures. I found it recently. The piles of pictures, and it was great. So that's how we make the styles for Cyberpunk, and then things started to clarify a little bit.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah, I like the whole process. Like I've always been inspired a lot by the things that I see that is just being produced by artists that we get to kind of experience, because I work in communication. So for me, like seeing something come to life and seeing like concepts for characters, for locations and stuff like that, for vehicles, weapons, whatever, it fuels you. It really is something that, because, on paper things, you read them, you might have some idea of how they look. I remember when I joined the company, I saw the first concept for Regis. I'm like, Regis for me, like in my imagination after reading the books for so many times, like, he looked different, but I like this. It's super interesting. It's super different. And also, I always like that we don't stick to one art style. We kind of play with it. Even in, once again, talking about Regis and Blood and Wine, Toussaint was totally different. We even went to an extent to have a fairy tale world in it, because it provided something. It was lush, it was vibrant, it was colorful, it was different than Velen, for example, which is like a bog, which is dark gray.
This is actually what I really love here at Red, because we try to deliver not one drink, it's a cocktail of experiences. Exactly.
One of the biggest principles, right? Create a contrast always. Have drink dark and full of color, and then not only like shades of those both solutions, like directions. So cool.
Yeah, but guys, because this believability factor is so important for all of us here, I think like one of the common denominators, like in all disciplines, is this kind of way of thinking that people try to deconstruct, like what's now or what's potentially in the future or what was in the past, and somehow picking the important like pieces of it, and that's very often it's a beginning of the creative process in our case. And doesn't matter if we are talking about animal, monsters, environment, Night City, Japantown, Velen and stuff. There's always some sort of inspiration from the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Because you cannot get a better inspiration. You will not be able to invent something more complex and detailed than our world, right? Which has a history, layers of it, evolution, and all this stuff. So we always try to base it on real. Well, that's why we, for example, for styling the Cyberpunk and later Phantom Liberty, we did not try to only recreate like one picture, so one frame that's how it looks right now, but we reached back like 100 years in the history of design, trying to figure out how old things look in this world, right? How 50 years old things look in this year. What's the futuristic design what's the fashion that's coming to Cyberpunk? So you can only see glimpses of that on the streets, right? So building this kind of, referencing our world, it's not like everything is the same. You have the whole spectrum, the history and all the layers. So that's what we try to mimic with, of course, a limited amount that we can present in the game, but this is the start.
Yeah, and keep it like with full of consequences. This is only one thing. Like always take care of this part, like a big consequence. Yeah.
It's like with creature design for monsters, right? craziest things you can Google looking for different parts of bodies of weird.
Lucyan sometimes sends me some inspirations. I'm like, man, I can't
and
sleep.
You can't believe it. Some bugs, some sea creatures.
You know which one I'm talking about. You know, don't.
It's a nightmare.
It is a nightmare. It's engraved in my brain now.
Exactly.
I will never forget this.
Yeah,
I try to
nature is awesome.
Stop myself.
Nature always provides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. What is also cool about art and Red is that we want to, and we have this kind of a mission. We want to, talk about the art. We want to teach people. We have some collaboration with Future Games. We had some collaboration with Platish long time ago. Yeah, there's this kind of a mission of actually also teaching people. And we have an event, right, called Promised Land Art Festival that we started like 5 years ago, right? 6 will be
6 years ago.
6 years ago.
It's a sixth event.
It's a sixth event. We started
2016.
Exactly. We started 8 years
Yeah.
ago, and that's going to be the 6th edition due to pandemic, of course.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that there is this quote, right? United in Art, and there's an open day that we kind of invite all the youngsters, also like artists wannabe in the future. We give them the free portfolio reviews, and etc. And Paweł, you're like one of the first people that kind of co-founded, right?
With you.
I mean, you guys are both art directors for the festival. Let's put it out there.
Yeah, exactly. And we're still continuing it, and it seems that people loved it, and it's part of our, let's say, even Polish, I would say, environment when it comes to festivals.
It's a global thing.
It's a global.
People come from around the world, like literally.
By the way,
around
the
world.
lineup for this year is epic. Just wait for it. But yeah. And what's guys? How do you actually think about this festival? Like, do you feel like this mission behind this? And because just one thing, because we got already a few artists directly from this festival that works in let's say an animators or on illustrators, and I love the whole idea behind the festival, and that people
Sharing
are like
art.
sharing the art, and creating this culture. So what's your perspective on this festival?
I mean, originally, we started thinking about it after we went for some conferences like 10 years ago, and we're so, I was surprised from myself that how inspired I got after meeting other artists, talking about stuff, seeing presentations, seeing how they work on movies, games, discovering that some things are similar to our processes, some are different, right? And just talking about it, I just came back home and said, oh my God, I need to do some art, right? So
it was THU, right?
No, it wasn't. It was behind the Iron Curtain in Romania.
Yeah. It's Romania,
That was
right?
crazy. Then was the THU.
But I was in the THU and I felt exactly the same as you.
And then we
clashed and it was like, dude, we have to make something.
It took some time to convince the board to do that, but when they greenlight it, I feel right now it's part of Red culture also.
Of course,
we're excited, and it's super important for artists actually to open those horizons. Clash with other artists, talk about art. Get inspired, share the perspective, broader horizons. What we do there is like, I think it's super cool. There's a lot of workshops, so we go there not to listen how other illustrators created their brushes in Photoshop, but you as an illustrator go there to, for example, sculpt in clay, right? Or go for some Houdini classes on the computer, or just listen about how VFX are done or how the narrative is being constructed, right? So we are gathering, like, broadening your horizons. Or even, for example, we had this one lecture from an actual weapon designer, and our weapon designers were super excited because they are designing weapons. That's what they do every day, but they never created a real one. So they don't know what kind of problems and perspectives are
when you actually make the real thing,
right?
Yeah.
So that's could be very eye-opening. So it's...
Yeah, exactly. And what is super awesome about this festival that you have actually one common denominator, which is art. And it doesn't matter how like, was the tutor behind it, was a lecturer behind it. with ILM 25 years, Pixar 20 years, you can smell it and feel it that everyone is kind of equal.
Exactly, this is the
Even,
point.
and
actually,
that's the best thing, right?
Yeah.
And what unites people is really art.
Yes.
And we're living this quote there.
Yes.
And I love it.
Everybody's so approachable. That's the thing. That's incredible. Like you feel like, you know, you're just starting out, but then you have someone critiquing your art who has been doing this in the industry for blockbuster movies or for, you know, like incredible games that you experienced throughout the years, and you're like, wow, yeah, I can actually talk to him and get pointers or get some tips in terms of like doing stuff. It's incredible.
And also like all distance between, you know, all those iconic, you know, artists there, you know, it's just automatically, you know, start to be very, very small. Yeah, really, really small. And you can, you know, talk with them. You can, you know, you can see like how they're the humans.
Yeah,
right?
they're just normal human
like
beings.
Everyone. Yeah, it's
exactly.
so nice.
Because we tend to idolize people and kind of think like, oh, they must be like these unapproachable like god figures up there. But then it's like, okay. And I like that you said that it's inspiring, because I feel like for all of you as artists, like inspiration is very important. Like you need to have that drive to create stuff, right? And you get that drive from different outlets, like you said, from real world stuff, also from people who are writing the story or preparing that stuff, or briefs or whatever, or just from your imagination, right? So it's like, it's incredible.
Just observing the process, how other people approach the same problems, you know, what's their design process, what their thought process, how they get inspired. Super, super really valuable.
And it's part of our red culture, and you actually send all your artists to this event. How does it work? Like, do you literally see that, you know, your artists come back from the promised land? Is there a fuel that they get out of the promised land? Like you feel this inspiration that also works in our studio?
I hope. I mean,
you know, okay. After every event, you know, really, after every event, you know, like there are more people just like from society level.
Paweł is so tired after each event.
I'm tired.
You know,
no, but
he works like runs around everywhere. That's why.
I'm getting feedback from individual people. Some of our artists are just approaching and saying that was cool or something.
So
right?
you don't trust people.
But I cannot measure it.
It was amazing.
They might be lying.
Really? Well, it was amazing. Tell me now.
No, yeah, I'm always usually unhappy from anything, right? So there's always something you can do better.
That's true. Perfection is
perfect event. Really, really amazing. Even, you know, after all this event is always there's a new, fresh and powerful in the whole team. You know, especially in the creative departments. Yeah, really, the people are inspired. And they take this, you know, and they bring it to the Red Studio, and they working on the new ideas, and you know they explore new areas, and really like this is so cool. It's amazing, guys. Really amazing job.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, because we're gonna wrap up soon, but before we'll do it, we have to ask the question about some stories, like at least one story, guys. You are here for so many years. You need to have a bunch of them, and one story that you can recall just like that. It was like, I don't know, it can be funny, but it can be also a tough lesson or whatever, but that you really remember like very vividly.
Don't hold back.
I have a really bad memory.
Paweł was brainwashed after Cyberpunk.
After every project.
I finished a project. Oh, what? What did I do?
What project?
We have a lot of, you know, stories, I think, but we shouldn't share.
Not all of them can be shared.
So share the Easter egg, whatever.
No.
Share the one you can.
Like I remember, like when we get from Game Informer, probably, you know, some like a trophy. It was the what was that? Like, was like a desk with like not snowboard desk, maybe something like that.
Skateboarding.
Yeah.
And we just take it, you know. It was really late, really late.
It was a trophy. It was a really important prize.
Very, you know, with nice, you know, Game Informer trophy, like perfect, yeah. And we will take on the small hill with stones. It was winter, right? It was the winter, right? The winter, yeah. And the stones wasn't visible.
People are boarding. People are skating in winter in Poland. So,
yeah. And you know, and we just
polar bears.
use this desk, right? Like, and scratch all
ruined it. No.
everything was there.
I think it is somewhere in the office still. I think it is somewhere in the office.
There's the story.
Yeah.
Behind the scratches, we
Yeah.
see this, the story. And the next day when we just, woke up and came to work, and it was like,
Who did it? No one.
"Ooh, no, not me, not you, no one. Everything's all right. We had this. It wasn't like that before. But it was so. Yeah.
Sometimes happens.
Yeah.
Delivery man probably scratch it.
Yeah,
Wasn't us.
I think right now is the value for this desk is actually like the
board,
this trophy. It's the board is even better because some nostalgic,
Brings
memories.
back memories. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Paweł?
So cool.
I broke
Something
the orc
art-wise.
statue.
You broke an orc statue?
Yeah, that's my favorite story. We had in the lobby this massive orc statue from World of Warcraft back then when the CD Projekt Blue was a thing.
Also like...
And that was if you can
I was
Google
two
Michał Kiciński and Marcin Iwiński standing with this proud with the orc statue and all the trophies on the wall in the newspaper, And one of the parties were making fun with this orc, making photos with him, and they totally crushed it. It collapsed.
No.
It was destroyed in multiple pieces, etc. Felt very guilty.
Master of disasters. Our art directors.
So I was orc.
Broke off. Sorry.
I got a nickname of Orc Slayer for a year after that.
Orc Slayer. Wow.
Nice.
Oh,
Nice.
that's a good one.
Now we are older
Yeah.
and more serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, guys.
But when it comes to art, I still want to pull one out of you, like lesson learned or thing that was easy, that was difficult, something that comes to your mind, just from your craft.
Easy and difficult.
What was easy?
Oh my God. Nothing. Nothing. Yeah,
No,
everything is difficult. Yeah, really, everything is challenge. Every day is every second day is a challenge. Every second meeting and talk, and everything what we are doing is a challenge. Everything is difficult, but we really, literally, we all the time find in the middle, in between all those difficulties, fun and passion, and we have to do it because without this we will burn out forever.
Amen.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
And to prove that, I remember how many months I think you guys iterated on the regular door design for Night City.
Okay, this is one of the of course.
That's a good story.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's always going back to the drawing board. It's always reiterating, and I love that we do that. And I love that like you guys said, and one of the things that you were talking about, that sometimes we're past deadline, but we know we could do something better. So let's just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always there's always something to fix. You can never finish the game. You can never polish it enough, right? So there's always till the very last day and moment we're pushing stuff inside. And then when there's a content lock, we still push stuff inside, just to produce, hey, just one more thing, or just add this to this change list. What lock? Then patch, and etc. Game is never finished.
Yeah, that's true. True.
Perfect.
But the process is fun, and there's a lot of learning. Like we're here 20 years, and I feel every day we learn something how to. But it's different projects, different challenges, but it's the constant work is about learning how to cooperate with teams, how to work with people, how to communicate with them, how to share the vision, how to
It's tough.
clearly translate your intentions, emotions, and ideas. This is the constant process.
Never ending learning curve.
Exactly.
Like it never ends. Yeah.
Exactly. Never ending story.
Oh, by the way, so good movie. I seen it last time.
Let's talk about this movie now.
With dog.
I love this movie so
Flying
much.
Dog.
I
Love it.
I highly recommend it to come back to this story. Yeah. Really, it's so cool.
All right, guys.
Perfect.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Cool.
guys.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Thank you.
It was awesome. Yeah. Thanks a lot for the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Right, guys. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We hope that you enjoyed it as much as we did. There were some super cool stories from Lucjan and Paweł. Honestly, a few that I didn't even know about. And I'm super surprised and I'm stoked. So hope you enjoy it. There are more to come. right, Burza?
Yeah, of course. And don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, all that jazz. Let us know what you're thinking about the episodes. If you have any suggestions for future guests or for topics you want us to tackle, let us know. We'll be more than happy to comply. And of course, like Sebastian said, we'll see you in the next one.
See you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.